Shio, Iodiza. Welcome to the Red Road East. I'm your host, Fierce Truth Seeker. The Red Road East is an indigenous TV program dedicated to preserving, promoting, and representing the culture and legacy of American Indians east of the Mississippi in particular, and the voice of American Indians in general beyond the borders imposed by the settlers. When we come back, we're going to show you some footage from the Inwood Hill Drums Along the Hudson powwow. Later, we'll be joined by a special guest from the Pamunkey Nation of Virginia, and she's going to bless us with some good singing. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Placed on this Mother Earth the grass that grows, and also the Creator placed here the food in the garden, and in the garden of the Iroquois the Creator chose the corn and the beans and the squash to be the leaders of every vegetation that grows in our garden. They are the chiefs and the boss in the garden. And those are the ones that will nourish us when the snow gets deep in the cold winter months. And right now, where we live up north, our corn is that big already. Watermelons is always starting to grow, and in a little while we'll have red, sweet, juicy watermelon that is unmatched anywhere in the world. And so also the Creator made the trees, and He chose the maple tree to be the leader of all the trees that make the forest of the world. And when the snow goes away, the maple tree begins to run its sap. He wakes up, and thereafter all the trees wakes up, and they make the leaves on their branches. And then from there the flowers, and then the cherries, the pears, the peaches, the apples, the plums, and the list goes on.
Kasibahagwa Taino Cultural Society. Give them a hand.
Does anybody know what that means? Well, if you don't worry, because Columbus didn't understand it 500 years ago, and we're still trying to work things out ever since. But Takahiko is a Taino greeting. We wanted to offer you greetings today, and we're very honored to be right after Elder Tom Porter. We want to thank him for that wonderful, wonderful blessing and opening. We're going to play a short piece for you.
Shio, welcome back. And now we are joined with the lovely Kandia Crazy Horse. She is a country artist, and her CD is called Stampede. Kandia. Welcome.
Chamo Ungapo, thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Tell us a little bit about your musical background and how you got started singing.
Well, I hail from down south. I come from a family where there are some musicians in the folk realm, and on my paternal side, they are big and country and western fans and have been for a long time. Listen to Hank Williams Sr. and all that. They're also Baptist preachers, so somehow in that mix, and then having the Pamunkey and Scottish African side from in and around Appalachia, the two converge and made me have an interest in country and bluegrass and mountain music, all sort of roots forms from that region that have been a part of the culture of both sides of my family for eons. And of course, as you know, being Pamunkey, I've been in Dixie well before the establishment of America. So I tend to blend all of those influences into my sound.
Nice. Tell us about your CD and the inspiration behind the creation of your CD.
My first album, Stampede, it was released last year.
Okay.
It on Blue Billy Records, which is based in Miami, Florida. It was the start of a 4-album song cycle that is created in dedication to my mom, who walked on during the last decade.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
Yeah, she was a beautiful woman, a globetrotter, a rambler, and a major music, especially a jazz fanatic. She had a lot of influence on me in that she collected records, which when I was coming up, I'm a bit grown, when I was coming up was not a thing that women did. It still was kind of looked to be that seriously and passionately devoted to records. And I still collect vinyl. My stereo is still my best friend. And so out of, listening to music out of the 60s and 70s, particularly the stuff of the kind of Black Power era and Black consciousness, and then being influenced by the Native women that were prominent when I was little, that I looked up to and idolized, which was Buffy St. Marie and Rita Coolidge. They were out there doing it and visible in the arena of sound and culture that I aspired to eventually get into. I hope I'm doing it a little bit now. Starting to. It's still on the rise. So all of that combined led to the influence for what Stampede tries to express about the consciousness of a young woman of Native descent who is finding her way in Turtle Island through all these kinds of the turbulence of the way the macro culture is right now, the dominant culture, and what's going on in our streets, and yearning for a sense of the pastoral and the older folkways from the South and from the indigenous cultures. That's what my songs tend to be about. I also write cowgirl songs, just dreaming, being on the plains and in the Southwest and getting into fun trouble. So yes, Stampede is the first. Canyons is the sequel that will hopefully be coming out before the end of this year, that continues in that vein. Canyons has a focus of me really delving more into the subjectivity of being a monkey woman. I make reference to my mom and to my grandmother Elizabeth before her, and the experiences and sensibility of being in Virginia in various eras of our family. There's also more kind of travel songs and some classic trucker songs too. I think I'm maybe eventually moving towards some kind of Western swing surf music, but that remains to be seen.
Nice. Now, we're gonna have to take a break, and we will be back right after these messages. Our news correspondent in Pennsylvania, Firebird Greywolf, has reported that there's trouble in Navajo country. The Navajos are taking legal action against the U.S. EPA for a toxic river spill. There was a massive release of mine waste into the Animas River near Silverton, Colorado. The Navajo president, Robert Bagaye, said that they intend to recoup every dollar they're spending cleaning up the mess and every dollar it loses from damage done to Navajo natural resources. Here on the East Coast, the Pamunkey Nation is celebrating their victory for attaining federal recognition. They are the first Virginia tribe to be federally recognized. The 6 Virginian Indian nations began seeking recognition through an act of Congress nearly 2 decades ago. That's today's news. Now, back to the studio.
We're back. Okay. And we'll pick up from where we left off. Now, you told me before that, before you became a singer, you were interested in doing production.
Yes, that is true. Like I mentioned before, I collected records. I mean, both of my parents were influential in that and ensured I got around to all the record stores. Obviously, I couldn't drive back then. I had a very meager allowance, and I spent every Saturday morning, I spent it all on records, 45s, for those youngins who may not have had that experience. You didn't used to download digital things or ringtones. You used to go and get a stack of 45s.
That's right.
So, for some reason, when I was small, I taught myself how to read, my mom said, and I always read liner notes. In albums used to have gatefolds or inserts that had all this, it's like hieroglyphics. Yeah. I divined them very early on. I somehow knew exactly the separation in the recordings and then who did what and the engineers, everything. And so I started to learn names like Jerry Wexler and Tom Wilson and so on, who I just obsessed about. And really, when I initially moved to New York, that was my dream, was to become like Jerry Wexler's mini-me. He eventually became my honorary father, but unfortunately the great days of the record men and making records as a work of art in that sort of process was quite well over by the time I came of age and could move here. The era that I was really harking to had already passed. When he was cutting all those great sides at Muscle Shoals in the 60s and all that sort of thing. But that's still what I aspire to do, and I'm hoping the process with my own records gets to the point where I can do that or work with some people who still have the kind of gifts and skill set like for instance, my friend, the iconic Mr. Leon Ware, who I have great reverence and respect for. There are some people like that still around. Johnny Sandlin is still down there in Decatur, Alabama. They're still kicking. So there are still people that, did a lot of amazing and seminal work in American music and for the rest of the globe, ultimately. And armed with some of that and my beautiful little Banjolin Bluebird here, hopefully we'll make it. I got this blue macaw feather at Thunderbird Powwow where we were last hanging out. Yeah. From my cousin Tony Muhan. Shout out to Tony and Marcy. I'm sorry he couldn't be with us, but yes, this is good and will to be continued.
Tony was supposed to have been here today, but he forgot.
I know they're on the Red Road, but I want to hang out with them. We always have so much fun. So I have this feather in there, and this one was a gift from Marcy. So. Yeah, rocking the feathers and the mocks and all today. But that was a great time out, and that was inspiring. Getting even more interested in drawing into what I call Native Americana. So my forthcoming